the AP voters that did not have USF in the top 25. And whether you didn't think Boise State or Florida were as good as their rankings, I mean, they were ranked there. So you can't just conveniently not use those rankings when those teams lose. I mean, there's a reason they were ranked in the first place. And if you have those rankings and you do preseason rankings, they have to mean something. They can't just be like, oh, well, they only mean certain things. So it meant something for Florida State and Alabama, that matchup. It meant something for LSU and Clemson. It meant something for Michigan and Oklahoma in week 2. But it doesn't mean anything now when USF beats Boise State and Florida. That's hogwash. That's just not true. It's just not. You can't pick and choose. You can't move the goalpost whenever it's convenient for your argument. It's got to be straight across the board. Now, one of the voters for the AP Top 25 is a young lady by the name of Haley Sawyer. USC Sports for the SoCal News Group. She's an adjunct professor for the College of the Canyons, and she has a vote for the AP Top 25 poll. Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to sit here and pile on this young lady and start taking personal digs and personal attacks at her. I don't care how she speaks. I don't care how she looks. None of that. I'm not going to insult her intelligence. That is not what we're going to do here on the show. With that being said, if you have a vote and it is public, then you open yourself up for criticism for a lack of professionalism or a lack of knowledge in the job that you are tasked to do. So I think it is fair to question her motives. I think it's fair to question whether she takes this serious or not, but I'm not going to sit here and bash her for anything personal. We're going to keep this on the up and up, and I expect all of you to do the same. I'm going to play the video because she was on a podcast out there in California, And because, again, I reached out to her yesterday. I'll read it to you. Haley, Jay Recher from here in Tampa. I just wanted to ask for your thoughts on why USF isn't in your top 25. I'm not here to bash you or pile on. I actually love differing viewpoints. And if there's something we're not seeing in Tampa, I like presenting that for a counter argument so we can hear from all different point of views. Thanks. I feel like it's a fair thing to say, right? So nothing, no response. She doesn't respond to people hitting her up on Twitter. And then she goes on a podcast with USCHoops.com. And he asks her directly why USF didn't make your top 25. And the gentleman, even himself, was having an issue of like, oh, I thought USF lost to Florida. Like you could tell he wasn't. It was just kind of a weird thing. He was like, oh, I thought USF lost. I'm like, no, I don't know. I just feigning like it's cool to not know things is such a weird kind of route to take. Especially when you're trying to have a podcast and you're trying to, you gain credibility and act like you're a connoisseur of a certain topic. Like to act like, oh, it's funny that you don't know one of the biggest upsets and one of the biggest games the entire weekend. Like there wasn't that many. It wasn't week 1. Right. It wasn't one of those things where it was, hey, there was 17 ranked matchups and that was the one kind of just meant more to us because it was local. No, it was one of the biggest stories of the entire weekend. They had the hardest schedule in the first 3 weeks. You beat number 25 at home. You smacked Boise State. Then you go into Gainesville, into the swamp and beat the Gators. It's one of the biggest stories, regardless. This is not hometown bias. This is one of the biggest stories. Forget about college football and all sports is what South Florida is doing. And the fact that this young lady is pretty flippant in the importance of her voting, I think rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So I implore you, turn your volume all the way up because sometimes when we play these videos, they're not that loud. Turn that volume all the way up. I'm going to mute my microphone and I want you to hear her response when she was asked from USCHoops.com about USF and what they have to do to get into her top 25. And we'll discuss, and I want to hear from you. I'll give out the link here in a bit, but it's just, it kind of rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And I don't think, I think you do have a leg to stand on if this upsets you. Check it out.
I have to say one of the complaints had to do with South Florida, and I kept thinking, why does anybody care? South Florida lost to Florida, and I didn't. I had the game on in my house, and I didn't watch the end of the game. Didn't realize they had lost, so I felt a little bit like an idiot too. Just sometimes I can't focus on who's done what. But I'm sure people would love to know. I'm sure you can't answer this question for USC, but in general, what would be something you were looking for to get a team? You're a fan of some team. What can that team do to get into your top 25?
Oh, that's a great question. What can they do to get in my top 25? I think we take into account the week to week performances for a team, but also take into account like the overall season so far, what kind of culture that team has too. And there's also, there's tons of people that vote on the AP poll, and like, it's not a perfect system, but at the end of the day, like no matter who you pick, it does even out because there's so many people who vote. And like I said, it's really fun for discussion. It doesn't, probably matter in the end, but I'm glad that people are having a really good time with it.
Really? For all of the women that bust their ass in sports, for all the women out there that have to deal with people that denigrate them because of them being women, and they bust their ass and they make sure that they rise above all the undue hate that they get just because of their gender. This lady comes in here and it's like not a big deal. Not a big deal. Unbelievable. I just, when you sit there and you're going to say, well, we're focused on, of course, the week to week, but also the season as a whole and the culture. Hello? There's only been 2 weeks this season. So, of course, the week to week in the season are going to be pretty freaking similar. And you look at the culture set forth by Alex Golish, it's one of the best cultures in the country right now. USF a couple of years ago were one of the biggest laughing stocks in all of sports under Coach Jeff Scott. And here comes Alex Golish, back-to-back victories in the bowl games. A team going into the 2025 season with the most difficult start to the season, going up against Boise State, going up against Florida, going up against Miami, 3 ranked teams in the top 25. There were people out there that thought that they would be lucky if they won one of those games, let alone 2. 3 isn't even a discussion for the majority of the people that cover and follow college football closely. Not even a discussion. And they're 2-0. What more do they have to do week to week? What more did they have to do this entire season? What more do they have to do to show you that this ain't the same old South Florida? And to kind of laugh it off like it's no big deal. Tons of people vote. It's not perfect. It does even out. It's really fun for discussion. Really? That's the kind of attitude, the laissez-faire type of attitude that you're going to take with something like this? It does mean something. It means something when you're trying to grow a program. It does mean something when those votes matter. Those votes matter. We still talk about how high USF got all those years ago, beating West Virginia when they were the 5th seed and USF was the 18th seed. Sound familiar? And they got up to number 2 in the country. We're still hanging on to that damn thing 20 years later. The excitement for USF football was never as big as it was then until now. Those AP votes matter. If they didn't matter, why do we do it? Why is there so much importance placed on these votes if they don't matter? If that is the type of attitude for your voters, why even have the poll at all? And I tell you what, as bad as she may have looked in that video, the gentleman that was interviewing her looked 10 times worse. Again, you're interviewing somebody that has an AP vote. Not only do you get the result wrong, but then you start acting like, it's no big deal. Why are people upset? Oh, the ratings. What? You may be in La La Land out there in Tinseltown, where you show up to games in the second quarter and leave in the third quarter, but that's not reality for the rest of the world. Talking about USC and Lincoln Riley. Do me a favor. Put Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans on the same field as Alex Golish and the USF Bulls, and I guarantee you Byron Brown will run over every single defender from Southern California. I don't give a crap. South, Southern, who gives a shit? USF is winning that ball game. They're better coached. They're more prepared. The culture's better. This ain't the same old South Florida. Well, it ain't the same old USC either. You think it's all laughing, ha, 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 ha. Not a big deal. What an absolute joke. Again, we're not getting personal here. I'm not talking about anything. We're not going to get into a situation, or not talking anything about her gender, about, oh, well, women shouldn't have a vote. I'm never going there. Ever. But again, for all the women that combat those type of notions and this good old boy type of society that we have in sports, where women constantly have to climb that mountain and prove that they're more than just a pretty face, things like that don't help. It's one thing if you hop on this podcast or you answer somebody's message and goes, and you say, hey, USF is still in the American. I wasn't that high on Boise State. They were the 25th ranked team. They could have very easily been on the outside. I wasn't too impressed with Billy Napier in Florida, and I think USF is a good team, but I don't think they're in the top 25. Listen, I would disagree, but at least your opinion would have some kind of merit. You would have some kind of backing of like, all right, well, hey, I can at least see where you're coming from. Agree to disagree. But to just kind of laugh it off and act like it's no big deal. I can tell you firsthand how important it is to a lot of my friends and colleagues in this industry, how important it is to have a vote for a poll, or have a vote for a postseason award. They take it so seriously. I've had friends come up to me and go, this is my top 5 for this. What do you think? Not that they would change it, but just they want to make sure that they get it right. And this is in all of the sports. They don't take it lightly. And now you have somebody out there on the West Coast who is sitting there just laughing like, hey, tons of people vote. We're not perfect. Why have a poll if the goal is not to get it right? It does even itself out. It's really fun for discussion. Yeah, you may think that, but you know what the kind of people that say that? People that don't care. People that don't care about their actions having repercussions. People that don't care that seriously affects teams. Those rankings mean a lot to a team like USF. Trying to elbow their way into the big table. Trying to get into a big-time conference. Those rankings mean a lot to recruits. It means a lot to where your bowl games and finances and growing this entire program. And to have somebody who has the weight of an AP vote. I remember the AP polls coming out like my entire life and how important that is, and just the people that voted, and just thinking that, man, that's a heavy responsibility in the sports world. And for somebody to just kind of laugh it off like it's no big deal. It's bullshit, for lack of a better term. It really is. Pun 1000% intended. It's bullshit. You can't act like that. There's certain, ways that you can act in sports media. And I was going to talk about the Rays. We're not talking about the Rays until Sam Barrington joins us at 12:30. We're talking about this. I'm sorry. there's certain things you can be a little bit more kind of laid back about, and it's not that big of a deal. I had this conversation yesterday with Josh Pate about Josh Pate and his college football, the JP poll, when it's more of like, it's not a ranking system. It's a poll. He likes to have fun. He likes to go back and forth. He's very transparent about that. He's not going out there and saying, these are the best 20 teams. He has a team that's number one, neutral field. He explains it all. But again, people aren't looking at his poll and ranking the teams and going, and that like makes a big difference. He's having fun with it. There's something to be said about tact. There's something to be said about reading the room and understanding your responsibilities. And you get into a situation like this, where this young lady goes on this podcast and she's answering these questions. How, if you're a person that is in charge of handing out these handing out the ability to have these votes, how are you one of these people? How are you one of those people that are in charge and going, yep, that's the kind of person I want representing us? This is a bad look. This isn't a bad look because of the response from USF and Bulls Nation. No. This is a bad look for her, the people that she works for, and for the Associated Press. This isn't one of those things where like, hey, any publicity is good publicity. No, it's not. It makes people look at your poll like it's a joke and it's a popularity contest. And you have somebody in the other coast that doesn't even give a crap to talk about a game that was on at 1 o'clock their time, 4 o'clock our time, and one of the best games of the weekend. And the repercussions, like, that's the thing. This isn't a game that just came out of nowhere. A lot of people going into the season were talking about the difficult schedule for USF. Maybe I'll change the word a lot to a good number of people. More people started talking about USF after they played on Thursday night. They were the first game in week 1. All eyes on ESPN, and they beat the dog crap out of Boise State, the number 25 team in the country. So then the Rabbit Ears went up. More and more people looking at the Bulls and Alex Golesh. So when you go into week 2, and we had this conversation on Friday, when you go into week 2 and you're looking at all the matchups, and it's like, all right, you got Missouri, Kansas. You got the ranked matchup between Oklahoma and Michigan. But that game, whether you're in the Sunshine State or not, whether you're from Tampa, Gainesville, or anywhere in between, if you're a college football fan, you're like, that's a good one. Let's keep an eye on that one. And what happens? USF wins. So if it's your job to study college football as a whole, not just studying USC, isn't that one of the games that would make your ears perk up? Isn't that one of the games where even if you didn't watch it, you'd say, let me check that box score out. Let me read the recap of that game. Hell, why don't I do a little more of investigative research? Go on YouTube and watch highlights of the game. Then you would find out what happened. You would see the interception by Chenal. You would see the big catch for the touchdown by Keyshawn Singleton. You would see the game-winning field goal from Nico Gramatica. You would understand what Byron Brown was able to do, what Vaughn was able to do. But no, it just gets laughed off like it's no big deal. We have to hold these people in sports media to a higher standard. We have to. That happens a lot in politics. It needs to be better in sports. And again, if you're one of those people that are going to attack her personally and about her gender, that's going to fall on deaf ears with me. If you want to call on the AP to revoke her vote, that's not personal, that's professional. If you want to highlight her flippant attitude towards the process, that's completely fine. I go back to especially hockey, because I'm so close to those guys and gals, and just listening over the years to how important it is for Eric Erlinson to have votes, and Ed Encina to have those votes, and Deandra Lou, our good friend from the Hockey News, and how important it is for her to be able to vote. People voting for the MVP and for the Hall of Fame. Rob Motti, our guy from AP. Holy smokes, we got to get him on. And Rob saying, yeah, I got a Baseball Hall of Fame vote. Mark Topkin and all the things that he votes for. Every single person I've spoken to that have that responsibility, they take it so seriously. And this young lady, it's just like a walk in the park. If my rankings are right, great. If they're not, so be it. Who cares? I'm living in sunny California. Not good, dude. Not good. Greg Cruz, the votes are important. Right. G. Conrad, that culture line was weak on her part. She is clearly judging on a P4, G5 basis. I guess. Doesn't make it right. Tell me you don't know jack shit about USF without saying you don't know jack shit about USF. Because you could say a lot of things about USF. You could say a lot of things about our South Florida Bulls football team. You know one thing that you can't say in the last 30 months or so? That it isn't a culture that is thriving, that is growing. You have a indoor practice facility now. You have a on-campus stadium that is in the process of being built. You have a quarterback in Byron Brown doing his thing. He's got to be on the Heisman Trophy watch list now. You have Alex Golish, people talking about some of the things I didn't want to talk about with, where could he be going next? What big job? Could he be the coach at Florida? Could he be a coach at one of these other big schools? That doesn't happen if the culture isn't right. And it's not just football. Women's basketball and men's basketball and lacrosse and baseball and softball and track and co-ed cheer. Go look at the records of those teams. You don't think that the culture is bubbling up to the surface here and about to explode? Wait till USF gets into one of these big conferences. Game changer. USF isn't going to go into a Big 12 or a Big 10 or an ACC and be the doormat like those people down on I-4. This is Tampa. You may come here to visit. You're going to come here to live. This ain't no tourist trap. This is one of the best cities in the entire world and growing by the day with 3 professional sports teams. Greg also says, but it wasn't just not ranking USF. She ranked Florida 2 spots higher. There's no justification in that. Carlos Becerra, just terrible, giving all the hardworking women in sports a bad name. Whether we agree or disagree with that, Carlos, you're right. You're right. Because there are people that already feel that way. It's not fair, but it's reality. Lady Evil, 100% agree. Maybe if we somehow beat Miami this week and we'll be an eye. Who knows? And then it's just like, oh, yeah, you have him in there now. That's not the point. Not the point. Greg says, I hope Golish replaces his team before the Miami game. Yeah, maybe. But I don't think they care, nor should they. Block out that outside noise. Focus on what you can control. Total disrespect is right, Greg. You have to be better. You have to be better. When you are tasked with a certain responsibility, you need to be better. Somebody just said on Twitter, this is so bad on so many levels. It is. It is. Wiz, if you want to rank them 25, fine, but not having USF ranked is just a crime against humanity, and we must take legal action. That's probably a little bit far, my friends. But think about it like this. It's Tuesday, September 9th. We're on our way to week 3 of the college football season. And you know what we're talking about? We're talking about our USF Bulls getting shafted from being outside the top 25 on one person's ballot. So when you put things into perspective, I mean, they're there. Number 18, And again, the last time they were an 18 seed going up against a 5 seed, they had the biggest win in school history. That win over West Virginia that vaulted them up to number 2 in the country. I think that was the number 1 win in USF history. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. That was a big win against Florida, but it only got them to 18. You played West Virginia, the number 5 team in the country, and beat them and went up to number 2. Now, last time they got into a position like that, that was the number 1 victory in school history. But after this weekend, it could be number 2. Because if they go into Miami and they beat the Hurricanes, that's the biggest win in school history. No doubt in my mind. And if you're a betting man or a betting woman, or you're not, I'm not betting against the Bulls. That's for sure.